All right, let's speak now to Johnny Patterson. He's the director of UK-based human rights group Hong Kong Watch. He joins us now from London. Johnny, good to have you on the show. I'm wondering what your reaction is to the latest verdicts.
Thank you very much for having me. I mean, the latest verdict is the mass arrest of kind of potential sentencing of some of the most moderate and highly respected figures in Hong Kong's democracy movement. The founders of the democracy movement, known for their peaceful exercise of their rights. They've been sentenced for participation in a peaceful protest which involved hundreds of thousands of people and was unnecessarily prescribed by the police under legislation which the UN has repeatedly called out for being in violation of fundamental rights to freedom of assembly. And this is a dark day for Hong Kong's democracy.
You characterize these people as having moderate views. I think it's a fair assessment. I mean, then I guess that the others that are being charged sort of all or should await a similar outcome then.
I mean, that's one of the big concerns. This was a peaceful march, hundreds of thousands of people on the streets, and they're sentencing the grandfather of democracy, Martin Lee, Margaret Ng, one of the most respected barristers in the city, and their peers, and it's really shocking. It's a sign of the direction of travel in Hong Kong. As I see it, it's a classic example of the authoritarian playbook. You redefine national security, you exercise emergency powers in the name of national security, you then lock up all the opposition in the name of national security, rig the elections, and rewrite the constitution again in the name of national security. It's a sad day.
I mean, Johnny, when you look at these, at the nature of these courts, these national security courts, I mean, basically the government can sort of pick their judge. Oftentimes there's no jury. I mean, it doesn't have to be open to the public. I mean, what does this mean in terms of the people being in court getting a fair trial?
I mean, when the government picks the judge and decides the charge, and there's no jury, I think the rule of law is very much on the line. And Hong Kong's historically been known for its rule of law, and that's one of the reasons it's an international financial centre. So I think Beijing is potentially shooting itself in the foot with some of this. They're compromising the city's reputation and putting the rule of law in jeopardy as a result of their actions.
What do you think this means for the pro-democracy movement?
I think the pro-democracy movement is going through a very hard time. You can't crush the idea of freedom, and Hong Kongers have a deep-set belief in liberty and freedom, and so I don't think that this crackdown is going to signal the end of Hong Kong's movement. There are brave people on the ground, and there are many brave people now in the diaspora who are going to continue to fight the fight. But it is very hard for people. What Beijing have done in raising the cost to the point where anyone who steps out of line who's not deemed patriotic under the new definition of patriotism can face up to 10 years in jail. It makes it very, very difficult for political opposition to flourish. And the new electoral reforms mean that Hong Kongers can't they can't vote for a candidate of their choice, and 40% of the seats are handpicked by Beijing, and less than a quarter of the seats are now going to be democratically elected, and that makes it very, very difficult.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that. I mean, you talk about a political opposition. There could very well be no political opposition with all the sort of new steps that Beijing is introducing in terms of what political candidates can actually stand for office.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there's a question to be asked about winning hearts and minds. And I think Beijing are not through their actions winning the hearts and minds of Hong Kongers. I think we see the views of Hong Kongers very clearly on the streets a year and a half ago when 2 million people took to the streets. But in terms of kind of institutionalized political opposition, that is going to be increasingly difficult. And the actions Beijing have taken are in direct violation of international law under the Sino-British Joint Declaration and their commitments under UN covenants. And I think that's a point that really has to be made. This is a breach of the rights that are protected in international law, and the rest of the world needs to take action.
All right, we'll leave it there. Johnny Patterson, thank you very much for joining us. I do appreciate your analysis here on the NewsHour.